Welcome to The Voiceover with your host, Dee Foster III, where we discuss relevant topics that affect the culture with bold, independent commentary. Get ready to be inspired, enlightened, and encouraged.
It's Friday, and welcome to the Voiceover Now podcast. I'm your host, Dee Foster III. Thank you so much for joining us, and what an exciting show we have for you today. You know the spill at the beginning. I want you to like, subscribe, share, follow, and I want to say thank you for all of your wonderful support. I appreciate you. Don't forget to smash the like, to support this channel, WPB Media Networks. Push it up in the algorithms. Put the link of this show. Oh yeah, you want to hear and see this show. Put the link of this show in your bio, in your contacts rather, and send it out to your friends. I know that you are going to be blessed. Listen, I want to hear from you. That's thevoiceovertheglobe@gmail.com. Thevoiceovertheglobe@gmail.com. It's Friday and it's 6 o'clock somewhere, or if you're looking at the replay crew on Saturday, what's up, replay crew? Have you joined us on Sunday morning at 7 a.m. for the upload live of the Voice of Hope Connection? It's an inspirational word that God gives us to give to you to help you make it through the week, with all of the challenges, with all of the obstacles, with all of the uncertainties. One thing we say, that there is certainty in the Word of God. Again, like, subscribe, share, follow. Can you believe it? I hope you had a marvelous week. We're headed towards the end of a brand new year. Before I get into what we're going to share on today's show, I want to begin to invite you to a special webinar on the December 31st at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we're going to be unpacking prophetically 2025 and beyond. Now, listen, I know that can be controversial when you say predictions and prophecy and looking into the future, but everybody, God has given them several gifts to. I am not an engineer. I admire engineers, how they can do the math and do drawings and design a structure on paper. That is not my gift. I admire mechanics who can look into the hood of a car and tell you what's wrong and tell you what's needed and know the parts and know the defects. I admire that. I admire a plumber who can look at piping, who can look at all of the faculties that cause running water and tell you what's wrong. But there are those who God has anointed and gifted to look into the future and to prophetically connect the dots and bring about a reality. And that's what we're going to be doing here. Now, everybody wants to know the future. Everybody wants to know the future. But God says, I've given you prophets. I've given you sons of Issachar, that they know what time it is, and they know what Israel, or they know what the United States, or they know what this current culture are to do. If you listen, I'll be giving you more information. I want you to set aside, it's not going to be a churchy thing. We're not going to be yay and I said. No, we're going to have the exact prophetic science. We're going to be given dates. We're going to be looking at the political landscape, the spiritual landscape. We're going to be looking at the economic landscape. And if I would give a synopsis of 2025 going into 2026, you say, what do you see? Drastic change. You said, well, that's on a broad level. Exactly. But I'm going to break it down in detail, invite a couple of, my plan is to invite a couple of hosts, a couple of guests. But if not, I've had the unction to do it ourselves. But again, I want to invite you. That's who I'm interested in, inviting you to join me for a special webinar. Now that information will be uploaded on the next week when my guest will be Darren Muhammad from the State of the City. Don't miss next week's podcast when my special guest will be my brother Darren Muhammad as we talk about everything in the culture, as we prophesy, as we talk about what we see into the future, preparing you. That's right. Prepare. Yes, you can know the future. In the Spirit of God, we are supposed, he says, listen, St. John 17, when the Spirit of truth is come, he will lead you and guide you into all truth and show you things to come. He doesn't come on, to make you jump, to shout, to quiver, to fall out. He comes to lead us and guide us into all truth, into what? Show us things, events to come. So we're going to be called this webinar, Unpacking 2025 and Beyond, on New Year's Eve at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. About 90 minutes of power-packed information that I know will bless your life. We'll give you more information on that on next week. But today I want to share something with you. And, we began to share some of these events several months ago as the Spirit showed us to our spiritual growth classes. Several times a month, we host spiritual growth classes, and we talk prophetically, we talk relevance, we talk natural, depends on where we are in that particular class. But I want to take you into our class on last week when we talked about there are two worlds. This is what woke prophetic people understand. There are two existing worlds that exist at the same time. And the question for today is, what world are you living in? Listen, I'm going to take you into just a snippet of that, right? Then I'll be back to close it out. But this is what we get on our spiritual growth classes with the Wake Up Global Network. Enjoy this. Don't forget, like, subscribe, share. I'm telling you, you're going to be blessed. But more importantly, I believe you're going to be enlightened. Watch this. All that we see and all that is orchestrated is by what is not seen. Now, let me take you to one reminder here before I jump into the main 2 Corinthians 4:18. So we look not. Now, this is key. We look not. This is what wake up. This is what it means to be awakened. For we look not at the things which are seen. And I'm gonna kind of give some clarity to what that means. But at the things which are unseen. So there are two worlds. Now, I'm going somewhere. Just hold tight. There are two worlds. There's a seen world that you and I see in the visible, everyday touch, taste, the five senses. But then there's another world that is unseen. So this is what this is talking about. He says, for the things which are visible are just temporary. They go, they come, just fleeting. But the things which are invisible are everlasting and unperishable. Now, the unseen gives the real meaning and definition of the seen. If I want to understand, this is why astrology becomes, the unseen gives the real definition and meaning of the seen. What I don't see can always define what I do see. What I don't see always define what I do see. That's key. My operation is, and this is when you get into spiritual mastery, to understand what I'm seeing, to interpret what I'm seeing. And that's a training process, because that's not how we are born. That's not how we're developed. We are born, we are developed to interpret what we see by what we see. If that makes sense. To interpret what I see by what I see. But then the spiritual mastery comes in when I understand to properly interpret what I see. I have to find out and go into the unseen, which is spiritual. Spiritual. Now I'm setting you up for something. Just hold tight, because I'm going to get to a few things in a minute. One of the major arts of mastery is being trained how to see in the unseen. How to see in the unseen. That's what being awake is. If I see and interpret in the natural what everybody else is seeing and how they interpret it, I'm not woke. I just interpret it pretty much like everybody else. But when I see it differently, when I see it in the unseen, then what happens? Then I'm woke. Why? Because I'm interpreting it very differently. I'm interpreting it very differently. So I don't know what, something happened there. So the unseen gives real definition to the seen. The unseen gives real definition. So one of the major arts is operating, and I don't want to lose you, in the unseen. How do I operate in the unseen? You have to take and become a master of that which is not seen, which again is not the way we're trained. That's not how we're trained. We're trained to interpret what we see by either popular opinion, by the media, by our beliefs, how we were brought up. Because that, y'all listen, when you talk about going to other dimensions, breaking childhood belief systems is a major one. Old belief systems that no longer serve is a major one. And many times that's the hesitancy of going into the unseen because, wait a minute, they didn't teach me that. I don't know if that's true. That could be false. I don't believe that. And yet it's breaking through those old belief systems. And one of those old belief systems is that what we see is factual. That goes back to the matrix. The red pill or the blue pill. What we see is factual. Now I'm caught into the matrix. Let me give you some good ideas of programming, because this talks about programming, being programmed. I hear people all the time, and I'm wired to hear stuff that I'm wired to hear stuff of self-sabotage out of myself or people. So I always hear people say, I'll just give you an example. Well, you know, my knees, and it may be a physical thing. These old knees, they hurt, blah, blah, and I'll say something like, well, you know, you got authority. Let's get those knees straight. Well, you know, when you get my age, you can expect that. When you live to be like me, you can expect that. That's a programming. That's programming. It's a settled program. So you expect to break down at 60 or 70. Those are belief systems that most people they can't shatter because it's so deep. And it takes an inner work to break through those belief systems to go to the next level. My body is actually, and of course we got to take in chemicals, we got to take in the air, but literally we are created to live at least 120 years. But who believes that? Our bodies work now of course there are other factors beyond our control, but I'm just saying, we get the proper diet, we get the exercise, but most importantly, we feed our minds the right thing. As a man or woman thinketh in their heart, so they are. Our bodies are created to live well over 90 years old. I mean, I appreciate 90. But it's a belief system that that people believe they should start. I'm just giving you these examples of what being woke is not. There's a belief system that when people start getting around 80 or 70s, they should start slowly deteriorating and take that deterioration as something normal, because it's a belief system that most people start transitioning around 80 years old unless something else happens. And to dig into that, it takes a lot of inner work to say, listen, if Moses lived, I'm just giving Moses, to 120 years, and his natural forces abated not. People say, well, that was back in them days. I understand that. Understand that there's stuff that's out of our control. But I understand that as we come into this new age, that the Spirit is raising up nutritionists who are going to get our eating and our eating habits back in line with what the Bible says. We're coming into a place now where we must, and I say this again, been saying it, grow your own food, because even what's organic got chemicals on it. Everything is chemicalized. But we're going to be forced, especially during these transits, to say, I'm going to grow my food so I know what's in it. And I may have to go meat less for a minute till I can find out if that was grown in a factory or not, full of chemicals. But we're waking up to this knowledge. Holistic medicine. Let me say this parenthetically. I believe at the root of what happened to this CEO is going to be what I've been seeing for years. It is going to cause an investigation into the medical field, into Big Pharma. And as a result, it is going to, I believe that was a catalyst in the spirit. I'm sure there's some other things that I saw that will come out in the natural. But in the spirit, again, looking at the spirit, the root, this has to do with this medical field, and Big Pharma must be transformed in this day of Aquarius. It has to be transformed. But the point is, we've been programmed to level off. That's not being awoke. That's not wake up. We've been programmed for certain failures and limitations. That's not wake up. And the only way that can happen is that we fail to get into what's spiritual. We fail to see what's spiritual. Now, one of the major arts, I'm going to repeat, of mastery. Imagine, one of the things I can say is I have lived for years to put this in someone. And I can say that Magi has embodied it. And I so appreciate her, because out of all the years that we have been training together and working together, and sometimes me presenting things that she doesn't off the cuff understand, she never relented. She'll come back and say, you know what? She said, hey, I had to sit with that a while, but she never just threw it out. She never just disregarded it. She always said, now I ain't catch it when you first say it, I have to admit, but I went and I got it. That's mastery. When one of the lost arts is, if you look back in our history, we had initiates, quote unquote, to bring us into certain master arts, to bring us into the arts. We had the sages. You'll hear me talk about that a lot. We had the gurus. We had those who would initiate us and train us and develop us and mature us and bring us up. That's why we mastered a lot of things back then. Even if you go into the martial arts today, you have a sensei. You can't become a black belt without a sensei. And that is a typology of, and you have to excuse me, of the lack, especially in our community, of being, and I use this word, and a lot of people, you can take this word 1,000 ways, but I know how I want to use it, initiated or properly bought into. It's kind of like what the Jewish do to their children. They have the rites of passage, bringing you into another dimension of life so that you can master that area. That's one of the things that I saw that even in the church, that's what Jesus was doing. We just finished our common union. What do you think Jesus did? Jesus mentored. He spent a few minutes talking to multitudes, which most people emphasize. But his life, his 3 years was full of mentorship. You often see him taking 3, 12 across the river, taking them up to the mountaintop and pouring into them, empowering them for life. Taking them to the Mount of Transfiguration, empowering them, saying, listen, I can't speak these to the masses. They don't have ears to hear. That's why this is something you can't join, because most people, a lot of people, you got to have ears to hear. You got to have ears to hear. That's why I tell people, find your tribe. How do you know when you found your tribe? Because you'll be able to hear the message that's being spoken. You ain't got to try to figure it out. Find your tribe. So Jesus was about impartation for the purpose of mastery. That's why he would say certain things. And they may not understand it. And they would take him aside and say, what do you mean by this? He said, okay, I couldn't tell you the whole thing in public, but this is what I mean. The kingdom of heaven is like a grain of mustard seed. They understood mustard seed. So, but watch this. When he got to his mentees or to those he was discipling, he never used natural examples. He always took them into spiritual examples. He gave the multitude the natural. Oh, the kingdom of heaven is like a grain of mustard seed that when you throw it in the ground. So when they get to him, he says, unless a seed fall into the ground and die, it abideth alone. But if it die, it bringeth forth much fruit. Oh yeah, we got that. The multitudes couldn't get that. So I said that, and I know I'm saying a lot, but I'm saying a lot on purpose because I want to throw this into you and you meditate on it. Because this is a part of Wake Up. That we are woke spiritually first. That we see what's not being seen in the natural. And that we hear what's not being heard in the natural. And that's in any art, one of the greatest achievements is learning how to master that which is unseen. Now, here's what will stop that. And there's a place for what I'm about to say. You can never take logic. You can never take emotions into interpreting what's not seen. You can never take logic because it is unlogical. You can never take emotions into what is not seen. Logic and emotions are for the seen. Logic and emotions are not for the unseen. Jesus always consulted the unseen for manifestations in the seen. He always consulted. In other words, all right, let me give you a good example. If I have 5,000 people follow me and I don't have bread and I don't have nothing to drink and they're hungry, that was a natural issue. That was natural. But Jesus did not try to resolve that in the natural as a master. I got to cut it off right there. I know you were just getting into it, but this is kind of information that we share in our spiritual growth classes as a part of a Wake Up Global Networks International. Listen, I'm excited. I hope you were blessed. Subscribe to it, like the channel, be a subscriber so you know when this channel uploads brand new conscious but relevant content. Listen, next week, don't forget, you don't want to miss next week's show. My guest will be my brother, Darren Muhammad. He's had me on his program more times than I can count. And he's a brother I can vibe with, feeling the energy, feeling the spirit, going with the flow, not stuck in a rut, but can prophesy, can see into the future, can predict. And that's what we're going to be doing on next week's show, getting you ready for the Unpacking 2025 and Beyond webinar taking place right here on WPB Media on the 31st of December, the last day of the year, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you want to be a part of that, I want to hear from you. thevoiceovertheglobe@gmail.com. There's a special invitation link, thevoiceovertheglobe@gmail.com. Until Sunday morning on the Voice of Hope Connection, 7 a.m. This is D. Foster 3 reminding you, you have a voice. Keep lifting it. Peace.
Thank you for being a part of The Voiceover. Please follow us on all of our social media platforms to stay connected to our upcoming shows and guests. Instagram at The Voiceover Radio. Twitter at DPropheticI. That's the letter D, Prophetic, EYE. If this show has enriched you in any way, please share The Voiceover among your circle. Until next time, keep allowing your voice to be heard.